So first, I'm going to talk about a birth center birth, a natural birth. I want to start off by saying that I was low risk, which is why I was able to have a natural birth. The reason why a lot of people cannot have these type of birth experiences is because they are higher risk. So they take extra precaution, doctors and whatever take extra precautions when these people go into labor or during their pregnancy or whatever. But I was low risk, so I opted for a birth center. And what first got me introduced to the birth center was the documentary, The Business of Being Born. If you have not seen this documentary, you should definitely check it out. I'll link it below. It's on YouTube. It's so good, so insightful, and you just explore a whole realm of birth that you never ever really knew about. If you have seen it, then you know what I mean, and you know how awesome it is. So, yeah. So after I watched that documentary, I knew for sure I want to explore my options. I want to know that the birth that I have is truly the birth that I want and whatever. So we toured. The first birth center we toured was a birth center in Denton, Texas called Inanna. And I fell in love instantly. It was like a little house and it just felt so homey, and I just knew. And the midwives were just so trusting, and I just fell in love with it instantly. I knew that this is where I wanted to give birth. And so the pros. So the appointment. So your appointment, and as long as you want it to be, you walk in, you get seen immediately. It's just you in a room with a midwife. I really like that it's really nothing invasive. Like, she does not, she just fills your belly, checks on baby that way, and listens to the heartbeat. Doesn't do anything really invasive. So I really like that aspect of it. Asks you questions and takes her time, and you really feel like she's cares about your experience. So I went into labor. My due date was May 28th. I went into labor May 29th. The morning of May 29th, I started having contractions, and I started to lose my mucus plug. I started to have contractions, and so I was like, okay, this is it. We're in labor. You know, the contractions were pretty intense and close together. So I went walking just to get everything. I didn't want my labor to stop progressing. So the whole day I was on my feet walking. And my labor just continued to progress. I called to the midwife and I was like, I think I'm in labor. She's like, come in, we'll check you out. So I went in, and I was 4 centimeters. Yay. And this was like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon is when I finally got to the birth center. But she was like, I could have chosen to go home or stay there, whatever. So I was like, I'll just go home and wait till stuff moves along a little bit more. But yeah, it was 4 centimeters. And so we went to go eat lunch, and I remember this day like perfectly. We went to eat lunch at Panera Bread, and I had a pasta, so good. And I don't know what else I had. My boyfriend had something else, whatever. I remember my part of the day. And then after we went to Walmart and grabbed like a bunch of, toothpaste, drinks, snacks, stuff like that, because it was right by Panera Bread. So, yeah, and we were in Denton, so we actually at the time lived in Louisville, which is about 35 minutes from Denton, 25, something like that. And so my sister lived in Denton, so we just stayed posted up at her house until stuff picked up a little more. I was still not in pain. Like, I want to demonstrate to you when a contraction came. This is what I did. They call it pelvic rocking or hip circles, whatever you want to call it. But basically, you stand up, and when your contraction comes, you just move with the contraction, move your hips. So yeah, so I did that every time I had a contraction. They were not painful. They weren't painful. They just came and went, and I moved him off, and it was great. So, yeah, we were just, it was raining that day, and everything was just like so perfect and peaceful. So, yeah, so I called my midwife again, and I was like, um, so yeah, my contractions are about, um, whatever. I think at the time they were like 3 minutes apart, 3-ish minutes apart. We kept timing them as we were at my sister's house walking around, and then she was like, okay, well, there's about to be a hail coming this way in Denton. So she's like, wait for the hail to pass and come to the birth center and I'll check you out. So we waited for the hail to pass, and once it did, we showed up at the birth center. This was like at 7:30. And then she checked me, and I was 7 centimeters. Yeah, 7. So I had gone from 4 to 7 in about 5 hours, which was, I thought that was pretty good progress. My midwife thought that was pretty good progress. However, my water still had not broken. So we got set up in the birthing suite, which is basically like a bedroom. It looked like this. It was basically like a bedroom. So yeah, I walked around, paced around. I did not want to sit down because I did not want to slow down my progress. I thought I was making good progress, so I just kept on walking, kept on moving, kept doing my hip circles, and then but my water still hadn't broken. That was like the most concerning thing. So my midwife came in and she was like, if you want me to break your water, I will. This will speed things along and you'll progress a lot faster. And I was really opposed to anything that invasive. You know, I didn't want her to break my water. So I was like, I'll just wait a little and just see how things go. And now another hour passed. I think I was like, had hit a plateau. Like 7, I just stayed at 7 for a while. So I was like, okay, it's not the worst thing that could happen. So I let her break my water. She told me that after she broke my water, I would probably be in pain. Because up until that point, I wasn't in pain. It was just very calming and I was very relaxed. And so yeah, then she broke my water. I stood up, put on this huge ugly diaper thing, kept walking, and I still wasn't really in pain. The pain came, the pain came about 2 hours later when she checked me, and I was about 8.5, she said. So I started, once I reached 9, she never actually told me I was 10 centimeters, but after she told me I was 9, I started to feel really discomfort. I felt uncomfortable. It wasn't necessarily pain. They had a huge tub there, and I got to sit in it and relax, and it felt relaxing at first, but I was just so uncomfortable. It wasn't until my second birth, my second labor, my second baby, that I knew what this feeling was, and that was because baby's head was down there, and it's time for me to push. To me, it just felt really uncomfortable. So I didn't know that was baby's head there, and I didn't know I was supposed to push, because they told me it would feel like I needed to have a bowel movement. So I was waiting for that feeling. It just felt uncomfortable. It didn't feel like I needed to have bowel movement, so I just was really uncomfortable. Any position I got in just was not comfortable. So I just laid down. They have these giant peanut balls. It's a huge like workout ball, but it's shaped like a peanut. I put it between my legs, and that was the most comfortable position. I just lied there, and I was like, oh. Of course, that wasn't really making progress, but I just lied there, and I was just so comfy. And then my midwife walks in. By the way, my midwife's name is Jean. She's awesome. She walks in, and she's like, all right, let's get this baby out. Because she knew, and I knew, but I just did not want to push, that it was pushing time. So she pushed my legs up. I was laying on the bed. My mom and my sister were there. My boyfriend was there. My boyfriend, I was holding his neck so tight. I was like strangling him. My mom was holding one of my legs, and my sister was filming the whole thing. And I pushed for about 20 minutes. And then Sebastian was born, and it was amazing. Once he came out, I was so relieved. Oh my gosh, I was so relieved. And then, yeah, it was just raining. It was just so amazing. And the whole time, no one was pressuring me to do anything. No one was like in my ear, like saying, do this, do this. It was just me, my sister, my mom, my boyfriend, and my midwife, and a birthing assistant. So to me, those are definitely the pros of having a birth center birth. You know, there's not all these people walking in and out, people in your ear telling you what to do. You kind of just are in your own zone and uninterrupted. And I loved that aspect of it. So Sebastian was born at 2:50 a.m. I believe, and by 5 a.m. we were at home in our beds. We had my new baby, and it was just awesome. We got to go home right away. So yeah, the birthing experience was beautiful, and if I could choose, I would definitely have a natural birth again. So yeah, so now hospital. So my second son, you may be asking, why wouldn't you have a natural birth again at a birth center if it was so amazing? Well, the thing is, I could not. So my insurance, they did not accept it at the birth center any longer, and I actually didn't find out I was pregnant until 17 weeks along, and I was just really rushed to make a decision on what doctor I was going to see and where I was going to get birth. So finances were definitely an issue since we were not prepared at all for this baby. So we just opted to have a hospital birth because with everything, considering everything, it was just the smartest decision. So I had to mentally prepare myself to go from this amazing birthing experience at the birthing center to now going against kind of everything that I believed in, which was non-invasiveness, and go to a hospital. So I had a midwife at also, but she was not as holistic as my midwife at the birth center. She was kind of more medical, which makes sense because she delivers baby only at a hospital. So I went in. My due date for my second baby was December 4th. I went into labor. Now the thing is, I don't actually know when I officially went into labor. Starting December 4th was a Friday. Starting that Thursday, I started every night from that Thursday until I actually started having closer contractions, which was a Monday. I thought I was having contractions. So every night I'd have these really intense contractions. And I started using my mucus plug that Thursday as well. And I was just like, oh, these feel like contractions. But then all night, I would have them all night long. And then once I got up in the morning, they would completely stop. And I was like, what? That felt like contractions. It really did. Not painful, but just like intenseness. So, yeah, so I was like, okay, I guess that wasn't labor. So the next night, Friday night, happened again. I had these very intense contractions all night long. Woke up in the morning, completely stopped. Saturday, I actually called the hospital because I thought my water had broken. I was like, maybe that was just pee, because I had been wearing like a panty liner thing because my mucus plug I'd been losing it, and a lot of mucousy blood was coming out. TMI, whatever. So yeah, I thought that my bag of waters had broken, but I wasn't sure because it wasn't really that much water. It was just a little trickle. So I didn't know if it was pee or what. So I called the hospital and I was like, I think my water burned. They're like, well, just wait till your contractions are about 5 minutes apart and then come in. So I waited and waited. So that Saturday night, my contractions had that same thing, contractions all night. And then when I woke up, they went away. Sunday night, same thing. This was driving me absolutely insane. So, Monday, sorry, this is Monday, I'm not sure the date, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th? Yeah, the 7th. So Monday the 7th, I had those contractions all Sunday night into the morning of Monday, and then But this time, they actually continued throughout the day. They weren't very close together and they weren't very strong or intense, but they were definitely there. And so I just started to count them all day. And then at about 7 or 8 o'clock, I was like, okay, these are getting pretty intense and pretty close together. I think we should go to the hospital. So I told my boyfriend and we packed up and we went to the hospital. We brought my son, my 2-year-old son, with us. I need to clean my nose because I have a booger. Okay, so we got there and they checked me and I was 4 centimeters. Yes, I was 4. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'm actually in labor, but I thought maybe I had gone too early because I was only 4 and last time I got there when I was 4, they sent me back home. So we chilled, we hung out. My mom actually came and picked up my 2-year-old son because he was just getting pretty tired. It was really late, and so he went and stayed at her house, and we thought it'd be better if we wanted him to be there so bad to experience this, but he was tired, so it was just best that he slept. So we got there, the nurses, I put on this hideous gown that I swore I wouldn't wear, but I wore it. The nurses checked me and they hooked me up to the monitors, the heart monitors and the contraction monitors. Checked everything. They put me on a couple of IVs. One was for, they said I was really dehydrated, even though I thought I had been drinking a lot of fluids that day, but I guess not. So they put me in an IV of basically like salt water to hydrate me. And so I was hooked up to that thing that I said I wouldn't be. So this was just already such a different experience. And then the next thing that happened was the nurses had been watching my monitors from their office, and they noticed that every time I would have a contraction, my baby's heart rate would drop, and they were really concerned about that. I was not so concerned because I would imagine that when the baby is being contracted that their heart rate would drop a little and go right back up, which is what was happening, but they seemed to think it was something to be concerned about. So they kept coming in and kept adjusting kept changing the position I was laid in, had me like lay like this on the bed with my butt in the air for like 30 minutes, and it was just like, why? And although I knew that I could not do what they said to do, I thought maybe I should be concerned about this if they're so concerned about it, you know? So I just went along with it, did what they said as long as it was nothing invasive. That's what I was trying to avoid. So I did all the positions they said, nothing was working, baby's heart rate would still drop at every contraction, and so whatever. I just went with it. It was actually very uncomfortable to have these gelled up monitors on your belly, so that was another annoying thing. But I was so keen on having a natural birth in the hospital that I just let the nurse know that, you know, I don't want anything invasive. I don't want C-section. It's what I was mostly afraid of, having major surgery when I've never had surgery in my life. Props to women who have C-sections, though. I don't know. I can imagine how terrifying it is just to be cut open and your baby like pulled out of you and how to recover from that. It's just props, just real props to you women. You are the real MVPs for real. But yeah, anyways, so another thing, when I first got to the hospital, she had checked me and she said, oh, your bag of waters is still intact. So I was like, okay, I guess that wasn't what I lost on Saturday night. But then the next time she checked me, she was like, wait, I don't feel your waters. Did they break while I was out of the room? And I was like, no. And I was like, but on Saturday I called and I thought that my water had broken. She's like, oh, well, maybe your water has been broken for 3 days, and that's not good. So they hooked me up to another IV, which was antibiotics, just in case the baby had contracted an infection from being out of the bag of waters for so long and being exposed to fluids that could contain infection or give the baby an infection. So that was fun. So yeah, I was just walking around this pool, and it wasn't so bad. It wasn't uh, completely terrible. You know, I was still on the natural route, which is what I was striving for. So then, she came in a little while later and said that the doctor, my midwife, was not on call that night. So I had a random doctor whom I've never met before that was going to deliver my baby and who was making the decisions for my birth. So, yeah, he was like, the doctor says you basically have two choices. Either you risk your baby having an infection for being out of water so long, or you can have a C-section right now. So what do you want to do? Time out. Baby's crying. Gotta go. This is Phoenix. We're talking about you right now, baby. Your birth. Okay, so I'm gonna have to nurse while I talk, which is gonna happen quite frequently. Okay, what was I saying? So they gave me those two options, which either to a mom in labor sound terrifying. I was progressing really well though, which is why she wasn't so concerned. Every hour I had moved up a centimeter basically, so by that time I think it was like 11 o'clock or so, and I was already 8 centimeters. So I was like, I'm just gonna continue along the natural route and just pray that everything goes to plan. So yeah, so I did not have a C-section. So I kept progressing, but this time, once I reached, 9, 10 centimeters, she said I was fully dilated. When I felt that uncomfortableness, I knew that was because I needed to push. So I pushed when the nurses were not in the room. Every time I'd feel a contraction, I'd push with all my might, push, push, push. That's what I just felt. It felt good to go with the contraction, to instead of going against it, to push with it. So I still was doing my hip circles and using the exercise ball to loosen up my hips and all that jazz. So yeah, I would push, push, push. So when she came in and checked me at about the time frame is all a blur, but he was born at almost 2 a.m. So she came in, I'll say 1:30. Yeah. I'll say 1:30. So she came in at 1:30 and was like, oh, his head's right there. You're ready to push. So literally about 14 people came in the room. Nurses, doctors, a table full of blades and knives and scissors, and oh my god, it is the most terrifying scene when you're about to push. By that time I had ripped off my gown. I was completely naked. I did not give a shit. I was naked, and there was 14 people plus my family watching me. It was only my sister, my mom, and my boyfriend again. Um, so yeah, I began to push, and I looked up at I looked at the table with all the knives and stuff, and I looked at my boyfriend and I was like, "Do not let them cut me. Do not let them cut me." Because what they do if the baby's not coming out, it's called an episiotomy, and they'll make a slight slice in your perineum, and to help get the baby out. And I did not want that to happen, so I was like, please don't let them cut me. And so this doctor whom I'd never met came in and was like, all right, push, push. So I started pushing, And this time I only pushed for like maybe 3 times, 10 minutes, I don't know. And oh, he came out. He was so tiny. Sebastian, my first son, weighed 7 pounds 9 ounces, and Phoenix right here, he weighed 6 pounds 5 ounces. So he was a tiny baby. And I already knew that he was going to be tiny because I felt smaller than I did with Bash. So yeah, so he was born at about 2 a.m. and it was just that feeling when your baby, it's a sense of relief, but it's also a sense of, I don't know, it's just an amazing feeling. It's very euphoric. And they just hand you your baby and you're just to grab them and you're just so happy they're healthy and safe and with you. And I didn't tear either time, so I was so thankful for that. My baby was healthy and all that, so they didn't cut me. One thing I was not happy about was as soon as they handed him to me, I saw him get the scissors and I was like, no, don't cut the cord yet, because it's not good to cut the cord right away. You kind of want to let the blood finish pulsing so that the baby gets all that it can from the cord. However, he didn't cut it. He was like, okay, but then I heard him whisper to the nurse and he was like, I clamped it already, so it's basically cut anyways. Which was annoying because that's not what I wanted, but he didn't know that because he wasn't my doctor. And so whatever, if that's the worst that came out of it, I still had my natural birth, medical free birth. I'm not going to say medical because I did have antibiotics, but it was invasive free. You know, I didn't have any crazy interventions or I didn't have an epidural. And it was just awesome. So yeah, those are my 2 birth stories. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to it. It was about a 30-minute video, but birth is just such a beautiful experience, and this is what you get out of it: little tiny beautiful babies. And he's just the light. He's just such a chill cool baby, and I just love him so much, and it was all worth it. Of course, it was all worth it. And so yeah, those are my 2 experiences. I hope some of you can get a little bit more clear idea of the differences between a hospital. I will say one very big perk of the hospital was the food. We got free breakfast, lunch, and dinner the 2 days we were at the hospital, so that was pretty awesome, and the food is actually really good, and so that was awesome. Another perk is, oh, are you about to spit up? Ah! That was pretty much one of the only perks. Not really. It wasn't completely terrible. The people at the hospital were very sweet and very catering and very complimentary, whatever, however you say that. So yeah, I want to do another video that talks about basically all of I can't talk. I want to do another video that talks about birth in general and just like all the stuff that occurs during birth, you know, the stages of birth and how you can make your labor easier and tricks and stuff for natural inductions and stuff like that. So yeah, if you have any questions, please comment below. I would love. This is like my forte, birth and everything, babies. So please ask. And until next time, say bye, peeps.